Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everybody. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta. Thursday morning, October the 14th. I'm happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. Chat room is open, and the link is in there. I want to continue looking at the website angerresources.com. And there's some great information on there. I hope everybody will go check it out. That's www.angerresources, ANGERESOURCES.com. And we left off yesterday talking about what anger is and what anger isn't. And then we're going to move on with some more information I found about anger from Michael Obsatz and Dave Decker, the two gentlemen who created that website and who actually specialize in anger management and anger issues, you know. So they're both in the field of psychiatry and know a whole lot about it. It's pretty obvious from the website. So go and check that out. There's some great information on there, all kinds of articles. We won't probably go through them all. I really just wanted to touch on anger as it relates to child abuse because, you know, survivors and whatnot, because I spent a whole lot of time being very angry. And to be honest with you, I'm still angry, and I'm handling it so much better now than I used to, and I think that's just because I've done a lot of healing over the last 3 years. But I still, you know, have some anger issues that I'm trying to learn how to work out. And so this website's really good for anyone who, you know, just needs more information on how to maybe help themselves to work through some of the anger that they might be experiencing, or even people who know somebody who has anger management problems can kind of see the other side of it, and maybe it'll help them too, you know, to say, oh, this is why they're doing this, or this is what they're doing now, you know, just by getting this information. So I'm finding it very interesting and really, you know, some good information for me. So I hope it's helpful for other people too. And so, you know, I'm not a counselor or a therapist or anything like that. I don't hold any certificates in those areas. I'm just a private person who pays to do my own blog talk shows because I wanted to be one more voice out there for survivors of child abuse. You know, there's so many survivors. I know this. Lots of people don't really realize this just because they don't know a whole lot about child abuse and how much of it is actually going on and has been since time began. There's a lot of survivors out there, and I just wanted to be one more voice to add to the others, to sort of provide some help for people as far as just so you would know you're not alone, and to reach out and get some help, whether it's getting a counselor, a therapist, or joining a group support within your own city or town. If you have a chapter that meets, you know, for adult survivors of child abuse, just making sure that you talk to somebody and get some help, right, and not suffer on your own, suffer in silence, which is what I did for so many years, and really wished I would have got help. And that's why I guess that's really what really pushes me to do these shows, is because I wish that I would have reached out and got help a long, long time ago. And, you know, it took me years and years to get where I am today. And I think it would have gone a lot faster and a lot better had I got some help when I was in my 20s or in my late teens when I really needed help. And then even in my 30s, it would have definitely helped me out to have some help because of my adult survivor issues. And I never really started reaching out until really about a year ago, and when I started writing my blog and I started to talk to people about the abuse that I suffered. So, you know, I've come a long way in a year, but I had already started working on my healing journey about almost 4 years ago. So it has taken me a long time to get where I'm at today, and I'm in a much better place, and that's what I wish and hope for everybody out there who is suffering through this stuff, you know, and who has been abused and still having so many problems in your life, and just dealing with this whole mess, right? So that's why I just want to be one more voice. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And, you know, so I'm not a counselor or therapist. You have to listen at your own discretion. The topics of abuse are very sensitive, and you have to know how far along you are in your healing journey when you're going to listen to certain things. If you're feeling uncomfortable, you know, you want to be sure and just turn the show off, because you don't want to hurt yourself or somebody else. You want to be safe when you're listening to stuff like this. Anything like this can trigger people who have survived abuse of any kind, really. And so, excuse me, not just child abuse, but any kind of abuse, right? So you want to make sure you're in a safe enough place to listen. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I just ask that you have someone, an adult, listen to the show with you to make sure that it's something that you should be listening to, because I don't have any idea where the players are now, the Blog Talk players, and how young the people are that are listening to my shows. It's ultimately, about stopping child abuse, but there's a lot of adult content on my shows, so I think that young people should keep themselves safe at all times and make sure you have an adult okay it that you can listen to my show, and you can always let them listen to an archive or something and see if they think it's something you should be listening to, right? So we'll get right into this article here, and this is angerresources.com, defining anger, and it's www.angerresources.com, ANGERESOURCES.com. And we left off talking about, yesterday we were going through this whole what anger is and what anger isn't by Dave Decker, Anger, the Emotion, and they were saying that anger is, and they listed a whole bunch. He lists a whole bunch of stuff. It's appropriate when it's handled effectively and respectfully, because anger is natural. It's a natural response. So it's anger is okay when it's handled properly, and effectively and respectfully. Right? It's a source of discovery to tell us what's going on and what needs attention. It's a tool to help us clarify and define who we really are. It's a means to educate others about where our boundaries are, what our likes and dislikes are, and whatnot. It's just that when it becomes abusive, it's a problem. Or if we're going to hurt ourselves because we're so angry, it's a problem. And so many people have problems with managing their anger. I mean, you see it every day. Road rage, people standing in lines, getting grumpy and getting upset and then starting to get mad. Pretty soon, before you know it, they're really angry. And, it's like, I've seen this, I've experienced it, and I've actually done it. And I've been on the other side. I've been the person who has been so angry that it escalated out of control. And also I've been a victim of that, with my parents and the abuse that we suffered. A lot of it was just because they were so angry. They didn't know how to manage their anger, didn't know how to calm down or cool off, and could not do a timeout. They didn't understand that whole concept of taking a breather or taking a time out. They were just violent people. And so, I was raised by two of the best teachers in how to be violent and how to be angry. And now as an adult, I have to try to change my behavior, so that I don't hurt other people or hurt myself. And that's what I've been doing the last 4 years, is working on how to not hurt myself, mainly because I didn't want to hurt people, so I was quite often stuffing the anger and not dealing with things when they came up, and then not knowing how to deal with it, and then, of course, it would just build up, and then I was sometimes thinking about self-injuring or committing suicide and many other things, just because of the way I was feeling inside, the rage and the shame and the anger, right? So it's so important that we don't hurt ourselves or somebody else. We need to get help, right? My parents should have got help, or I wouldn't have to be here doing this show today. Actually, I would hope that I would, because I would hope I would stand up for other people and other survivors and help to stop child abuse. But, so many of us, if our parents would get help, or if they would have gotten help, we wouldn't have these horrific abuse stories to tell. And it's very sad, all because two people or one person could not pull it together and get help, right? And so that's why we have to get help. We can't pass the cycle on. So important. So what he says here at the end of what anger is, he says, if you do not address and handle your anger in an effective and respectful way, however, and you allow your anger to build and fester within you, it can lead directly to the attitudes and behaviors discussed below, which are distortions of anger, the emotions. So we sort of started to cover this part. This was cynicism, hostility, disgust, contempt. That's the attitudes. And that's what, it happens when we don't handle our anger properly. It turns into cynicism, hostility, disgust, contempt, and whatnot, right? And so these are attitudes that consist of mistrusting the motives of other people and brooding about and focusing on others' real or perceived injustices toward you, which I'm famous for doing. I grew up that way. My parents were like that, and didn't trust anybody, and always thought that everybody's motives were everybody was out to get the family, everybody was out to get them. They really taught us how to behave this way. So the rest, my siblings and myself, all viewed the world as well, somewhat similarly, right? So these negative attitudes lead to viewing the world as an unsafe place and continually looking for and expecting others to be incompetent and inadequate, be inconsiderate, unfair, and untrustworthy, to go out of their way to hurt or mistreat you, take advantage of you, or cross you in some fashion. And this went so far as that, because of the mental instability within our home, when I was growing up, the fact that our parents, actually this is exactly what they taught us, was that people were always just going to hurt us and take advantage of us. They would never, the motives were never going to be good, right? It was always going to be bad. And so the siblings all took that on too, and we all sort of felt the same way, that people were just out to hurt us, and because our parents had hurt us, we sort of believed that, that really you couldn't trust anybody, and that everybody was out to cross us or to take advantage of us. And then through my life, I've actually been taken advantage of quite a few times, and of course most people have been, and it's very hurtful, especially when you already feel that the world is out to get you. You don't handle that stuff very well, and it becomes so hurtful because we already view the world as an unsafe place and don't trust people. Then when you get, have somebody do something to you that they shouldn't have, and didn't, maybe not treat you fairly, a boss or somebody, coworker, or even a friend, it's very damaging, because it just proves that you are what you already feel that you know, which is that you can't trust anybody. And basically, it just kind of makes people shut down, and that's what I think, and that's what happened to me. And you just shut down, and pretty soon you don't trust anybody, and then you don't want to talk to anybody because you don't want to develop a relationship because you know it's going to go bad. It's almost this perception that, or perceived thought that, every single person out there is really not trustworthy and they're out to get you. But the last 4 years, I've really been working on that, and starting to think, if I want people to trust me, I have to learn to trust other people. And so, it works both ways. And so I just have to really be careful and set my boundaries on what I will allow people to do to me and how I will allow people to treat me. And so now, after, this last 4 years, I've really started to realize that I give respect, so I actually demand respect. So in the workplace, I don't like to be taken advantage of, and I decided, instead of getting so upset and quitting my jobs, that I would actually confront the issue if it comes up again, right? But I'm trying to actually learn how to do this and take on a different set of attitudes, right? So these attitudes can also involve critical, judgmental, and shaming thoughts about yourself, your mistakes, and your problems. So it's not only thinking that the world is out to hurt us, but it's also looking at, how we feel about ourselves. Because attitudes can involve critical, judgmental, shaming thoughts about ourselves, right? About yourself, your mistakes, and your problems, which, we're sometimes our worst critics, our worst own critics, right? I know that I am. And so, when I used to be really bad, and, if I made a mistake and stuff, it was like the end of the world. Because, when you grow up abused, if you don't even have to make a mistake and you're just abused. So if you make a mistake, you're in for it, and so as an adult, when I make mistakes, I'm really hard on myself. I'm learning how to not do that. And that's over the last, I'd say, quite a few years, I've been actually able to do pretty good with that, you know what I mean, and not even just this last year, but probably over the last 10 years or so, I've been really working on that, just because I realize that nobody's perfect, and we all make mistakes, and we have to try to learn from them for sure, and move on. But, you can't just keep running yourself down, like, especially when you've been run down as a child. That's that whole issue of people who have been verbally battered their whole lives as children, quite often grow up to be adults who verbally batter themselves, and the voices, from the past come back and haunt us right now. I hear my mom's voice all the time, and usually it's not good, because my mom didn't have many good things to say to me. So she's usually, throughout the day, if something is just not going well for me, I will hear her voice, and I'll hear all the stuff that she was telling me in the back of my mind, and I think it's because it was so ingrained, she was, and because she was not only inflicting verbal violence on me, verbal aggression, she was beating me as well. So she would curse me and beat me at the same time, and so it really sunk in. You associate the whole, like, if I'm tired and I'm feeling like I'm just not doing something right, or things are just not going well in something that I'm trying to do, it's not working out or whatever, or I make a mistake during the day at some point at work or whatever, sometimes hear her voice, ringing in loud and clear, the names that she would call me and what she would say to me. And I think people would say, well, how could, you should be able to kind of put that in the back burner. But I think what it is when you experience that your whole life, that I grew up like that. I came in the world 0 years to listening to her doing that to me to the age of 30. Now, she finally stopped the physical abuse when I was 17. But the thing is when you're from 0 to 17 years, when you just have that pounded into you and verbally pounded into you as well as physically, it does stick with you. You know what I mean? So her voice is still there sometimes, and it's not like you hear it all the time. It's mainly if I'm tired and I feel that I'm not doing something right, and or that I've made a mistake, or that things just aren't going well. Sometimes I'll hear her voice come in, and some of the horrible things she would say to me, I'll just remember that, and in the back of my mind, then I have to say, no, that's not true at all. And I've been able to push it away now and just say that's a voice from the past, and I don't have to pay any attention to that. And I'm actually working through this stuff, right? And it's great because it used to really bother me, and it used to hang around me really heavy, right? And I've come a long way, like in the last 4 years for sure. It says that these attitudes promote the idea that you are powerless and a victim. So it says these attitudes of being critical, judgmental, shaming thoughts about ourselves, our mistakes, and our problems, right? So these attitudes promote the idea that you're powerless and a victim, and that the situation is hopeless, which is never helpful in addressing and resolving concerns in your life. It says these attitudes are best represented by your negative thought process, negative self-talk, or rehearsal, right? So I totally relate to this stuff. I can totally see it because I know I've been doing it my whole life. And, for years I sat around feeling like that I was the victim, and that I was useless and worthless because that's what I had been told. And so that negative self-talk, it was no longer my parents talking to me, it was me talking to me. And I had to learn how to change that around and love myself. And that's what I did. I do talk a lot about that, on my last show, my past shows, is the fact that, once I started to self-nurture, that's when I really started to heal. And that was about 4 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago, when I really started to take a look at the situation and then realized that I was never going to get the nurturing that I needed from my parents, because obviously, I'm 45 years old, my mom's passed on, my dad's 87 and he's schizophrenic. So, the nurturing that I needed when I was a young child, I'll never get that, right? So I thought, hey, I have to do that. There's nobody really who can do that for me. They don't even realize that young child inside of me, my inner child, is really there and hurting, right? So I'm the only one that can reach out to her, and I should. So I started doing that. And when I started doing that, learning how to love myself and how to really care about my inner child and about myself, and realized that I did not deserve the abuse that I suffered, and no one does. And, that's when I really started my healing journeys, when I changed my view from myself and actually, instead of thinking like a victim, started feeling like a survivor. And I guess when I started to feel like a survivor and I said, hey, I'm a survivor, not a victim, and it really did change the way I felt about me. Which is very important, because when you're abused as a child, you're going to have all these negative feelings about yourself, right? So many times, a lot of a lack of confidence and a lack of self-worth and all this stuff, right? And so, I started to see myself differently. I think that's the biggest thing. And I started to say positive things instead of all this negative stuff, like, sort of negating what my mom had said years and years ago, right? I would just go and say, no, I am worth it. I do count. I do matter, because she told me I didn't count and didn't matter. She would say stuff like that all the time. She would say that she wished I had died and stuff like this, and I'd be like, no, I deserve to be here, and things like this, right? I would just go around and talk positively about all this negative self-talk I had been doing for years, and it really helped me a lot. And it says, when you regularly engage in negative thinking, you're constantly fueling your stress response and increase the intensity of your prolonging your anger. So it says, so when all we do is think about negative stuff all the time, we're just fueling our stress response and increasing the intensity of and prolonging the anger. So that's very important to know. That's why I try to be positive. And as much as I have points in my day where I'm negative, everybody does. Like, I don't know if there'd be one person who could get through the day positively on this planet with 100% positive thoughts. It'd be very interesting to see if they could do some sort of a brain scan and find out just if anybody could possibly do that. Thing is the more positive stuff we think about, the better off we're going to be. But then we can't, just stuff the negative stuff if we need to deal with it. I think what it is it's a balance, right? Excuse me, that's what I think it is, a balance, right? And thinking more positively than negatively. I grew up with people that thought negatively all the time and wanted to kill themselves, and some of my family actually did kill themselves. But, we can think about positive things too, as well as address the negative stuff, and that's what I'm doing. I'm working through my negative stuff, but in the meantime, I try to keep a positive outlook and enjoy my day and try to do the best I can, and find something that makes it worthwhile, you know what I mean, so that I'm not always thinking about negative stuff. Chronic cynicism, hostility, disgust, and contempt always lead to physical and emotional damage and significant consequences for you and others, it says. If these attitudes become your way of looking at another person, other people in general, or the world around you, they then contribute directly to the violation of another person's rights or boundaries through the behaviors discussed below. So they say aggression and withdrawal, that's what comes next after we become cynical, become hostile, disgusted, and holding people in contempt. Then it becomes aggressive. Aggression and withdrawal, the behaviors. So it says aggression involves behaviors acted out with the intent to hurt, punish, intimidate, or control others emotionally, verbally, physically, or sexually as a means to gain revenge for the real or imagined wrongs done to you and or get your way in a particular situation, right? That's pretty harsh because, that's really sad that people, including myself, anybody can become aggressive and become an abuser, right? Because anytime that you intend to hurt somebody, punish somebody, intimidate people, control others, either whether it's emotionally, verbally, physically, or sexually, it is abuse. And the sad thing is so many people don't consider themselves to be abusers. They feel that their actions are condoned. Like they say, they almost feel like their actions are justified. Like my parents thought that their actions were completely justified, that they would hurt each other and hurt their children. They didn't see anything wrong with that at all. And sadly enough, it's true. And so many people, because they loved my parents, don't see anything wrong with their behavior at all. And it's like, okay, what planet are you people from? Because I'm telling you, it's wrong. And there's just there's ignorant people out there, very sick people who are very ignorant, and they just don't know, and it's very, very sad. But anytime you use aggression, to hurt people, punish people, intimidate people, just to get your way or to gain revenge, that's wrong. So, it says withdrawal involves behaviors designed to disengage emotionally from difficult situations. This can be a punishing withdrawal that is used to hurt and get back at someone sulking or pouting, which I'm famous for. Or a protective withdrawal when you pull back into yourself if you are feeling uncertain and unsafe, becoming passive and stuffing your anger. That's me all over again. And a withdrawal may be also combine elements of both of these. And these behaviors used on a consistent basis will always eventually result in disrespect and emotional distance in relationships with others, for sure. Because if all we're doing is acting out aggressively with the intent to hurt somebody, punish them, and intimidate them or control them, all to get our way or to gain revenge, people aren't going to want to hang around with us. That's abuse, right? It's abusive behavior. It says, punishing withdrawal, that's something that a lot of people do and in order to get their way, right? And I know that I'm famous for that, mainly because I'm trying to learn how to handle conflict, right, without getting out of control. So instead of that, I'll just do these punishing withdrawal things. It's like, well, then I'll just stay back here and sulk and pout then, and to get my way or to try to get people to see what I'm doing within my family mainly. And it never works. But the thing is it's better than yelling and screaming at somebody. That's what I think. So I'm learning how to get a hold of my anger management issues. And so that I can handle things better. Right. So sometimes, for me, I notice that. Mainly that's why I'm doing that. And I think that as long as we recognize what it is, we can work on fixing it. That's the whole issue. I think it's just being able to recognize what we're doing and make sure that we don't hurt people. That's just so important because that's really sad and pathetic that we would take our stuff out on other people. That's what my parents did. That's why there's this whole issue of abuse, and destruction. Like they destroyed our family because they hated each other. Well, they didn't hate each other. They would tell each other they hated each other, and they weren't treating each other right. They were always using intimidation and aggression and abusing each other, in every way, physically, verbally, sexually, and then doing that to their kids too, except for minus the sexual abuse, but, well, at least as far as I know. But the thing is it's horrible. It's a really bad way to behave, and it's no wonder people don't like to hang around with people like that. Who wants to hang around with somebody who's like that? Right? So we have to be very careful that we're not like that, trying to get our way and being aggressive to get our way or to get others to feel a certain way, kind of controlling the issue all the time or trying to be in control all the time and end up hurting people. That's not right. And the next portion I want to look at here is from Mike Obsatz, and it's 8 types of anger from Healing Our Anger. And this is the same website, angerresources.com /types.html. So it's the same page. You just scroll through their tools and resources. If you go to the tools and resources little button on the left-hand side of their website, you can see all the articles there. This one's called 8 Types of Anger from Healing Our Anger by Mike Obsatz. And they list off he lists off 8 types of anger, and I wanted to go through these. Number 1 is chronic anger, ongoing resentment toward others and life in general. And that's what I had. I don't have that anymore, but that's what I did have. Number 2, volatile anger, comes and goes, builds to rage, explodes as physical or verbal aggression. I had that for many, many years, until my, I'd say, mid-30s. I have learned how to get a control on that. Number 3, judgmental anger. Critical statements are made which belittle, shame, or correct others, done with disdain. I try to refrain from that. Judgmental anger, it's really a bad way to be, always judging somebody. And when I start to think I'm going to do that, I actually try to shut myself down and think something a little bit more positive, because it's just not right to. That's how, if you've been on the other end of that, then you know what it's like, right? So we don't want to hurt people, right? Number 4, passive anger, expressed indirectly through sarcasm or being late or avoiding a situation. And that's my sister all over again. She thinks she's perfect, but she's one of these passive anger people. She expresses it indirectly through sarcasm or being late or avoiding situations, right? And, because she gets angry too, but then she expresses it differently, right? Some people express anger passively and some people are volatile, right? Just depends. Overwhelmed anger is number 5, arises when people can't handle their life circumstances and lash out to relieve stress or pain. That's my parents. They really couldn't handle anything, and they were abused as children themselves. They had no clue how to raise children. They didn't have a clue how to be in a relationship, period. Both of them came from very bizarre situations. I think they thought when they were married that they could solve each other's problems and hurts, cause the pain to go away, because they were both having their own issues as being abused as children. And then when they got together, it was a big mess, because neither one of them got any help for their issues. And so they had this overwhelmed anger. They never knew what to do. They had too many kids. They couldn't problem solve together, and so they would just lash out to relieve this stress. It'd be like, we were just like punching bags. I know I was. My sister wasn't, but I was. And my sister was 5 years older than me, and she got treated a little bit differently. She was still cursed at. My mom slapped her around too, but my mom did not beat on her with heavy objects and pound her and throw her into the walls and things like this, or choke her and things like that. My dad did never do anything like that to my sister either, but my dad was quite often what he would call disciplining me, which really involved beatings with belts and, tossing me into walls and stuff like that, which people would think is just crazy. But when you have a lot of damage to your back, I have places in I have places in my back where I can't feel anything because it's numb, and then on the inside it hurts. So it's a very bizarre kind of pain, but it's just from being slammed into walls, you bet. And the thing is my sister would say she was treated the same way, but she wasn't. But that's an overwhelmed anger, when people don't know what to do and they lash out at others. I really try really hard not to be like that, because that's what my parents were. Retaliatory anger is directed to a person to get back at them for something they did or said. That's kind of what I do. More than overwhelmed anger, I'm more of a retaliating person. But I'm learning how to not do that, right? Self-inflicted anger, number 7, which may result in hurting oneself emotionally or physically. Negative self-talk, starvation, eating or drinking to excess. That was me. Constructive anger, using anger to make some positive difference, such as becoming involved in a cause or movement for positive change. Well, that's what I'm doing right now. Constructive anger. Using it for positive instead of for negative, right? And that's what I'm doing. And a lot of people, wouldn't probably associate what I'm doing with that, but that is true. Instead of getting mad and feeling, like hopeless in a situation, it's like, okay, now what can I do, with my anger that will be positive, right? And so, in a way, that's kind of what I'm doing. So, thanks everybody for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I'll be back on tomorrow morning with the One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We'll just continue looking at some of this stuff here. There's some great articles here. And I want to look at the next ones which relate directly to abuse. So have a great day, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Go to this website, www.angerresources.com, and check it out for yourself. If you need something, get a hold of me on Blog Talk Radio or Facebook or whatnot. I'll be around. Don't forget, Elizabeth Brawley will be on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio tonight at www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers. Elizabeth Brawley, she's a Southern Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. And I'll be there. I'll be in the chat room. So I'm going to try not to miss her show. She's got a great show. So have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.